Welcome back to the Office Marketing Podcast with Mike Swigert, the podcast all about sales tips, mindset, and value bombs. 5 questions to help make your day more productive and learn a thing or two. Here is your host, best-selling author, Mike Swigert.
Hey everybody, thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to the Office Marketing Podcast. I have got I don't even want to call you a lighting guru, Michael. I think lighting, if anybody knows anything about commercial lighting, they say 99% of the people in the lighting business give the other 1% a bad name. And I think that's so true. So Michael, we're gonna talk a lot about lighting design, lighting procurement. Those are really big things when it comes to this world. We're going to pull back the curtain on Oz a little bit, but we have got the founder, chief innovation officer for ILC, which is Innovative Lighting Consultants. He's coming to us from Colorado, but he services the whole country. And Michael is going to share his wisdom with us. We're going to talk a little. Lighting, and we might even mix in a little something about Celtics basketball. So, without further ado, Michael, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much. Hopefully, I'm part of the 1% and not the 99%. That's what I'm striving for.
Yes, Michael, you wouldn't be on our show if you weren't a 1%er. So that's in so many ways. All right. So, hey, why don't you kind of walk us through your days, kind of coming up in Cambridge and heading to American and how you ended up in this crazy business.
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of probably entrepreneurs talk about how their childhood and how they came up kind of molded them to maybe how they got to starting their first business. I think that's kind of true with myself as well. So grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Anyone that knows Cambridge knows it is quite the liberal activist place. I mean, everyone's politically active there. Grew up pretty middle class there. Now it's like a tech hub and pretty wild how rich people are there. And then went to American University in DC, studied film, photography, moved out to LA just after college after doing a little summer job of painting elementary schools. And moved out there with 4 guys, lived in a 3-bedroom, tried to make it in the movie industry as a cameraman, made it into the union, shot, went to places like Thailand for months and were in the jungles of Thailand filming a movie. And then finally decided that I hated being in the movie industry.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. But you left an industry you hated into one of the most challenging, complicated, tumultuous industries ever. Somehow I ended up lighting, but how do we get there?
Yeah, so then I was thinking, where do my skills actually transfer to? Like, I know how to put a camera on something. I know how to light it, right? Where's the transfer? And then I met a guy in LA who was like, you should become a lighting designer. And I was like, oh, I know to light movie sets. Maybe I can just light buildings. And then there was a program started by an amazing lighting designer, Don Hollingsworth in LA, at an architecture school, and went there and worked at nights. Well, you'll like this. I worked at the NFL Network during the day. Did studio shows for the NFL Network. It was awesome. Best job ever. Just got to sit around, do like 2 hours of shooting, and then otherwise just talk to like NFL players all day.
Oh, cool. They probably thought you were one of the guys, one of the players. I mean, they probably.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. 6 feet, 160 pounds. I was playing cornerback or something.
I get that all the time. Most people think I'm an athlete. They're like, obviously an athlete.
Oh yeah, Warren Sapp, me and him, basically the same size.
Absolutely, gotcha.
So did that, and then got a job at a lighting design firm. Then kind of moved around the lighting industry, just learning. I was a sales rep at a distribution company. Just like every time I went to another company, I was like, wow, this process is so bad for everyone. Like everyone has like low margins. Everyone's fighting with each other. There's all these backdoor deals. You're like half your time at a distributor is just like on phone calls trying to make deals to make a job work and actually get it. And so I just eventually kind of got to this point where I was like, why can't we all do this in a better way? And it was the idea, I think I mentioned to you, it was like Uber looked at taxis and was saying, the customer just wants to get from A to B really easily. And what we did was really look at real estate developers just really want to get great design that is on budget, that they don't have to deal with, right? Most developers don't know anything about lighting. and they have a little bit of input, but it's so complicated. And so they just want to know that they're trust that they're getting great design and say, oh, here's my $500,000 budget, don't go over it. And
So
so that's what we've
somehow,
kind of
somehow
figured out.
you're seeing it's a sideways. We use the term mafia, and it
Yep.
is. And if anybody listening that knows me, I spent 5 years and plus in the lighting world. I've been part of those backroom conversations myself. It's kind of how I was able to pay for my children to go to nice schools. But you're kind of, again, you saw this as a challenge and you decided you wanted to start something to specifically address it.
Yeah, when I started it, my partner came on about 8 months later, and when he came on, he was like, "Man, some people are going to really take out our knees if we really get going with this because it's a mafia, right?" And what it was is what I think is really interesting. And I think the people that really kind of innovate industries are almost the people that are not so new that they understand all the existing processes, but not so such a veteran of the industry that they're so stuck in them. And I think I was kind of in this perfect sweet spot where I'd only been in the industry for like 5 years, kind of been on every side. It was like, wow, there's so much opportunity here to do it better. And so really that's where it was kind of our mission to start trying to figure out how we could integrate design and procurement and not just say, here's our design, now we'll purchase it for you, but literally make it an integrated process so that the developer has a better experience and thinks, wow, I know design and budget and how they're affecting each other and have this really transparent process where I can make decisions based on granular data. I have 200 fans in this multifamily and they all cost $219. And do I care about that? Do I want to put my money more in the lobby? And we basically kind of help them make those decisions with our expertise.
I love that. I love the fact that you care. And, because you come from the lighting design, like I remember when I was on the lighting rep side, one of my favorite things to do was to work with a designer, an interior, someone that was like, oh, I want this space to be special. I want this, like when they come off the elevator, I want them to be like, or when they walk into this conference room, I want it to be this, or a collaboration area. And I want it to be this, whether it be an artichoke light or just a certain combo of pendants. And they wanted to create this feeling. And I remember looking at them as the rep going like, say it was you. And I'd be like, Michael, okay, I know the space is important to you. The budget's getting squeezed, like maybe we can't do, these indirect pendants and we need to look at this, but I want to keep your cafe the way it is. Right. And those are my favorite people to work with. Cause a lot of times you work with designers are like, yeah, just put whatever you want in there. And I'm like, oh no, like I want your stamp. Like I want your thumbprint to be on this design. Like this is you, this is your name. And there was a wonderful, wonderful designer. And she worked at a company called VK, which is now part of Nelson. And every time I worked with her, she was on the A team. Every time I worked with her and I got to do jobs with her, I was like, oh, this is gonna be cool. And Michael, you would appreciate this. She and I would talk forever about the effect of light, not necessarily just the fixture. And as I know, as a lighting designer, I know you appreciate that. Like people that actually care that much, you want the job to stay pretty, don't you?
Yeah, and I think it's also like that's where I think lighting designers kind of have made somewhat of a bad rap for us. Every time we go in and we present to a developer, say, well, we don't use lighting designers much. And I go, why? And they say, well, they're kind of expensive and they end up putting in the most expensive products that they really want. And then we end up having to VE it. And then it's basically like, what happened to their design? I say, yeah, that's the opposite of what we're trying to do. Whole idea is, what do you want? It has nothing to do with us. There's no ego here. It's about making the best design for what their vision is for the developers. And it really, because my partner and I are designers, the sales side is just logistics and project management, right? That's the easy side. It's about doing great design. And that's where like controlling the budget makes our designs way better, because then we can try to make that $10 a square foot budget look like $15 a square foot by piecing together little things that no one even think about. Do we need this driver, this LED driver? Do we need this cheaper one? Because that just saved us $20,000. Now we can do this cool thing in the lobby. No one else really thinks about that. And no one else really has that control to do it. And so that's the big thing.
And when it comes to VE, really the only person that gets screwed on a VE is the person that writes the check. Like,
Yeah.
right. Like you and I both know, because any one of the subs, whether it be the rep, the distributor, or the electrician, they hear VE and they go, "Oh, sweet! I might get a new boat, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm going to pay for fuel for my
Yeah.
plane to take this."
Because you're telling me to come down, and now I'm going to come down this much, but actually charge you this much,
I
right?
know, it drives
That's
me
what it
nuts.
is.
Exactly,
Yep. I
exactly.
think we should call it devalue engineering, by the way. I think we should get rid of value engineering.
And please, if you are a designer and you're whether if you haven't been grizzled or jaded in this industry, know that VE is a huge red flag. If you're trying to save money, make sure you have somebody that's not BSing you on
Yep.
the multiple trades. Because I know from furniture and lighting, VE regularly means some contractor or some vendor on that job is kind of was waiting for you to say it, because their margin's going to go up, and
Yep.
and someone's going to win, and it's not going to be you. So,
Yeah,
but
we'll reduce the overall budget by 20%, but we just actually reduced our cost by 50%. So we just upped our margins by 30%.
yeah, exactly. And the distributor and electrician now are excited because, hey, cool, we just made an extra blank, right? And some guys are
Yeah.
compensated on their margin percentages, not even on on the gross revenue. So sometimes the sales guys are very incentivized to VE and increase the margin. And it's all that's the crap that happens in lighting, and it drives me nuts. So what you're doing is you are helping the owner from the design perspective on the front end, and then
Yep.
stewarding the project from the design all the way to punch. Am I right by saying that, Michael? Are you taking it all?
All the way to a year later, we get a call about some broken fixture. I mean, we are, any developer that working with, it's a long-term relationship. We've been working with, some big developers out here in Colorado for basically 4 years, and it's project after project, because now they don't, hopefully they don't really understand how to do a project without us, because we've created such a different process, and we're there, you know, the developers calling me on the phone and saying, "Hey, this fixture broke near the elevator," and then we're helping them with it. So it's a lifetime kind of relationship. It's not, walk away, I'm done in construction and stuff. And I think the other thing there is just kind of making sure that we're not giving distributors and reps and contractors and everyone too much of bad names, because there's been a system that's been built and their margins have been squeezed, right? And
Right.
so they're trying to figure out how to make enough money to make a viable business.
Oh
And
no,
so
we're not.
there's
We're not
the
knocking them. I
right.
think they know. I mean, no, I'm just kidding.
No, but
Well,
like there's a bigger problem here.
yes.
It's not just like greed. The bigger problem is that if you keep on squeezing this part of the industry, something needs to happen, right? And in what happened with our industry is they said, well, then we're going to value engineer, we're going to mark up stuff more and give you a little worse
Oh yeah.
product, and you don't have the expertise to know, right?
Right. I'm not disagreeing with you. I think that the evolution of the buying process was due for someone like you. And you're not even that much of a disruptor, because here's the thing is I can look at the players that touch lighting on a project, right? From the interior designer, right? The interior designer would love to work with you because, okay, cool. There's going to be continuity and transparency throughout the process from design to follow up. If I am a distributor, I'm kind of like, all right, cool. I don't got a lot of shenanigans and BS to play. I know I'm going to make a fair margin. And you tell people, am I right, Michael? You kind of tell people, you tell the owners, hey, I'm not trying to squeeze people's margins. These are fair margins. And
Yep.
we don't tell them what their margin is, but these are reasonable margins for the distributor, for the lighting rep, for the contractor, for the electrician. But if everybody hears what I'm saying, those are four markups. And if everybody marks up 5% too much, that's not just 20%. That might actually be more like 30 or 32% on your overall cost.
I mean, if you think about it, by the time uh, a manufacturer, say a white goods, that's just coming straight from China. Let's be honest, most of the white goods, right? The white goods are coming straight from China. Manufacturers marking up 60%, then a rep's marking it up 15 to 20, then a distributor's marking it up 20, then a contractor's marking up 15. That developer is paying about 115% before it touches their door. And that's not a GC is probably marking up another 5 for managing. And so that's a huge amount of markup for something that's commodity grade, that the developer, if they really want to, could probably go source it themselves from China. So it's something to think about, where we just got to balance what people are making based on scope, right? Based on what they're actually providing and value. And that's what I think we need to go towards, is you get paid based on your value in the process, not you get paid on time, which is another big conversation we can have another time. But I think the time-based design is a really terrible concept for both sides. Neither side win, the real estate developer or the designer, because the designer is trying to design the lowest amount of minutes per hour, right? And then the developer is trying to squeeze them, so then they're trying to do that kind of lowest amount of minutes at the highest margin. So it's kind of this, that's also a bad way to do it, but same thing on kind of the markup side. It's what value we're providing for that markup.
I like that, Michael. I see the value. I actually love the distributors. I think distributors have great value. It's kind of what we talked about a little bit earlier when it comes to, I mean, they're inventorying, they're taking a risk, they're putting stuff on the shelves, right? And they're the bank. So if somebody's thinking about lighting on a project, the distributors they've earned, they got bricks and mortar, they've invested, they've got that. I think the distributors are going to make it. I think we're going to see reps kind of get squeezed out a little bit over the next, 5 to 10 years. We're going to see a lot more direct manufacturer to distributor. We're going to see that blend more. We're already seeing it in furniture. We're starting to see it in other disciplines. It's fascinating to see it. And your model is valuable to the distributor. I think it is still valuable to the rep. You're definitely valuable to the designer. You're super valued to project managers and to owners, reps and owners. So I'm glad to have you on the podcast, because more people need to know about you. They really do.
Well, thank you. Yeah, well, I mean, I think what it is, well, one, I think that's the thing, is that reps were helpful. We're doing full specification. They're not just getting like that random email with, hey, I need this. It's very, structured. We're doing all of our own calcs. So they have very little work for us. And then contractor side, like I mentioned kind of before the podcast, was we're doing a lot of the project management for them. And they're not having to VE, they're not having to send out for bids, they're not having to requote stuff. We're telling them a change order and how much it costs. So there's a lot less work for electrical contractors, and hopefully that makes them happy to kind of have this different process for them.
I love it. I think, obviously I'm a huge fanboy of what you're doing. I think, I am.
We'll get you a t-shirt.
I have to be by the way, just so everybody knows, Michael is not a client of mine. Michael has not paid anything to be on the podcast. I just love his story. I love his vision. I love his model that he's put together to share with an industry. You're solving a problem, man. Like, you really are. You're solving a problem that needs to be solved. And I love it. I really do. I love it.
No, it's I appreciate the fandom. Yeah. And I think the other piece of this is really just like,
this episode of the Office Marketing Podcast is brought to you by Fusion Advisory. We help commercial contractors generate leads online profitably. Check us out at fusion-advisory.com.
Our industry has been so stubborn with technology, right? And not being innovative. And maybe it's a result of having a low margin industry, right? If you have low margins, how do you have the margin to be innovative unless you're really scrappy and really kind of just pushing innovation, even though you might not have the margins to do it? So with that, we've built so much technology that makes our model possible. If you try to do what we did, the labor intensiveness of it without the software we built would be pretty much, you would never make money. And so without all the automation we've built, it would be really difficult. And I think that's really where our industry really needs to move, is towards this kind of more innovative approach to technology, to processes, and not just, if these reps and distributors and everyone don't want to get disrupted, sitting around and thinking that your model is still going to be okay in 10 years is probably not the best move.
Oh no, there was who was it? It was one of the big consulting firms came out and they said, basically what we thought was going to take 5 years in technology evolution happened in the last 12 months.
Wow.
That was one of the things, like if you think about what accelerates technology, right? What really accelerates technology, right? Whether it be trying to put a man on the moon or war, and there was a war on a virus over the last, 14 months. The numbers, I think the last numbers that came out, we spent, adjusted for inflation, we spent twice as much money battling coronavirus than we did in all of World War II. So, I mean, we have really I'm not getting political, I'm not getting,
Yeah.
but we put our hammer down on this thing, and we've invested a lot into this last war. And that is, really pushing, technology to be adapted much faster. I mean, think about it. Like 15 months ago, the concept of how many people really knew how to do a video conference, right?
I mean, in our industry, probably not that many.
Oh,
right.
You'll appreciate this. About 13 years ago, maybe 10 years, maybe 10 to 13 years ago, I'm doing a project, and actually, so I'm repping GE Lighting, and I'm in a GE building, and they're doing a telepresence room. Have you ever been part of a telepresence room?
No, is that different from like a conference room?
Yeah. But there were these great. There's basically what we're doing right now, but you would put like 8 or 12 people in a room, and they have these great screens, and you'd be able to look to your left or right, and hey, Michael this and Michael that, right? Basically what we're doing right now. But you would spend hundreds of thousands, and AT&T and Cisco had all the technology on these telepresence rooms, and I did the lighting for a bunch of them. And so I get called out to a job, and the project manager, dear friend of mine, he's like, Mike, your team totally messed up. Like, your team couldn't have screwed up any more on the lighting of this telepresence room. It's just crap. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'll be right out there. And what's funny is this guy was a young project manager for CBRE. He now is like the director of interior construction over the whole Southeast. He's a brilliant, brilliant guy. So anyway, so I go out on this job site, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's horrible. I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know how we missed the ball by so much. So I go up and I get up into the ceiling, and I'm like, these aren't my fixtures. And then I start going, well, and this is before LED, right? So I'm designing it basically with like a T5HO. Well, they had VE'd it down to like a standard T8. So now I've got T8 2x2s up in the ceiling, and it was designed to have this very specific T5HO. And then they cut the number of fixtures down in half. So if you know anything about the telepresence, your vertical foot candles were critical, because you had all of these cameras, and the cameras weren't nearly as good as even the cameras you and I are talking on right now.
Yep.
Here's the kicker. So it's in a GE building, and they had put non-GE fixtures and non-GE ballasts and non-GE lamps in this. And I went to the project manager, and I said, look, I'm really sorry. I said, look, once the spec was written, we assumed this was all us, but the electrician just went and bought stuff off the shelf and didn't follow the design, and he just did it. And needless to say, within 24 hours, I paid for it, right? We didn't even sell the lights. We went and got them lights. We doubled the number of lights up in the ceiling. We left the T8s in there. We bumped in with T5s, had the whole thing lit. And within 24 hours, we went and got stuff off the shelf that was there and lit it up. Now, needless to say, that project manager is still a great friend of mine. He'll never forget what we did. But that's one of the problems you fix, though, isn't it, Michael? Like, you keep that from happening.
I mean, honestly, that's what probably my partner, one of his biggest selling points when he talks about it is this idea that that's part of the game that we talked about, right? Is make it so that you're over budget, so that then someone else can come and swoop in and kind of put in their package out of nowhere that is higher margin, costs less. But it's also, I think it's part of the kind of the game of how contractors can make a viable business. Again, back to like, we have a bigger industry problem than one company at a time kind of being greedy, and that they have to make their money on change orders and on kind of at the last moment going to Home Depot and marking it up 40%. And that's exactly what happened on your project. I said, well, I could put in these GE fixtures, but I could also go grab these that look exactly the same, and I can make 30% more. And so it's really a bigger industry problem, because again, it's the owner, it's the developer. They don't get anything they want. They're basically getting 20 cents on the dollar right now. With most of the industry, because they have no power, even though they're the ones writing everyone the checks. It's kind of amazing, honestly. They're the ones with millions of dollars in buildings, billions of dollars, and they have no power to really control something like lighting on their job.
Well, I love talking lighting. I'll have you back on in like 12 months, and we can have like a state of the lighting world conversation. And I do love lighting. I love the effect of light. I love the how much it impacts the mood of a space. just the color of light, the CRI, like the feel of a space, you can really make such a big difference. And not even getting into like circadian rhythm, which I know is super hot right now. But
and I think like a big thing with, as you're talking about design and loving it, it's like we've created such a low bar for lighting design in terms of like probably less than 1% of the projects in the world have a lighting designer, but probably 80% of them need one. And so we've set this really low bar that bad lighting is okay. And part of it's been all of this stuff we've talked about with politics and things over budget and lighting designers being expensive and their designs just getting VE'd to death. So what's the point of hiring them?
Okay. Yes. They're going to call you, Michael. People are going to listen. They're going to call you. They know they get to have their
cake. It's more, I want everyone to like start this kind of movement.
They're going to call
ILC will do great, right?
Michael, if there is a designer listening, they're going to think, holy crap, I get to have a lighting designer and hold budget throughout the entire thing. I don't have to talk. Hey, believe me, you're good, brother. You have a great model. It's going to be just fine. All right. So let's talk about you. You are a Celtics fan. If you had to pick, I mean, I'm going to be a little biased because I'm 10 years older than you, but you had to pick your best starting five. I should have warned you.
Wow.
I know. I'm going to give it to you.
Okay.
And I'm not going to ask you to name the coach because we know who the coach is going to be, but we're going to say you only get 5, right? You get to throw 5 out there, and they didn't have to be a C for long, a Boston Celtic. Which 5 are you throwing out there?
So if they don't have to be a Celtic for long, I think you got to put Bird at the small forward, right? So that you can put KG at the power forward. So I think you got to do that. Because KG, even he just got into the Hall of Fame. It was just like his thing when he was giving his speech was, "I wish I went to the Celtics earlier. I made a mistake," he said.
Yeah,
I think a real stab in the Timberwolves.
Yeah, I know. By the way, when KG would come to Atlanta, I would literally go see the T-Wolves just because KG was playing. But go ahead. All right, so now you're pretty solid. You got small. Your 3 and 4 are spectacular. Like you're solid.
Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think you got to put Paul Pierce at the 2 because I mean he's gonna be in the Hall of Fame as well. If you remember Reggie Lewis, he was probably up there at his time, but Paul Pierce he was pretty darn clutch.
Great call. Great call.
I'm also probably a little bit biased because I was so young in the 80s, but I think then. I mean, it's tough. Can I put McHale at the center, even though he didn't really play center?
Well, in today's game, he could play the center just fine.
Yeah. So then McHale, I think, has to be center. Also, one of the best.
You're not gonna put the Chief
power
in there?
forwards.
You're not gonna put.
I think you want McHale over him. But and then I don't know. Point guards. We've never had like an amazing point guard. I'm trying to think of. I definitely will not put Kyrie Irving there. I tell you that. That was a disaster of a.
I saw Kyrie picked over Trae Young on a like all NBA team this year. And obviously I'm biased. I like Trae Young. And I saw Kyrie picked over him and I'm like, you don't know. Trae Young's so good. He's just not on TV as much, but man, Trae Young is spectacular.
Can I pick 1 year of a player? Because then I would pick, I forget what year, but 2015 of Isaiah Thomas. The 1 year when he was like almost MVP at 5'9".
Wait, but Isaiah only played for the Detroit, right? Did Isaiah ever?
No, other Isaiah Thomas.
Oh, the other. I'm like, Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah. The other Isaiah. I mean, the 1 year of Isaiah Thomas on the Celtics, he had like the most fourth quarter points in the whole league that year.
That's clutch time. That's clutch time. Well, I'll tell you what. You're building a company that takes care of people from the tip off all the way to the fourth quarter. So I appreciate what you're doing, Michael. Hey, if people want to get in touch with you, obviously your LinkedIn is fantastic. People can reach you on LinkedIn. Any other way that you would like people to reach out to you?
I think LinkedIn's the one that I really follow. I'm not the biggest on social media other than LinkedIn. And I think, kind of drop I mentioned to you, but we got a really cool software company that I've started that we're still in stealth mode, as you said, but hopefully in the next 2 weeks, we'll be coming out of that. And I think the distributors and reps and manufacturers of the construction industry are going to be pretty excited.
We're going to get you on. Hey, you know what? I'll have you back on in a couple months and we'll just talk about that because you teased me on it. And I'm I'm pretty excited about that too. So, and you know,
we can see how the Celtics did if they win the play-in game tonight.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way if they ever have to, play the Hawks. I mean, no, I mean, obviously these guys are unstoppable. I can't see anybody other than Brooklyn, LA, and 14 other teams, being able to beat my Hawks.
Giannis, his own one-man team.
Milwaukee is pretty good. So, all right, brother. Hey, Michael, again, thanks a lot. Really enjoyed our time together, and look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike.
Thanks for listening to the Office Marketing Podcast. Be sure to join the conversation on our YouTube channel, LinkedIn, and Facebook pages. If you enjoyed the episode, head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.